How many times this week has someone on your team asked you a question that you've already answered dozens of times? If you're being the walking Wikipedia for your business, if your phone buzzes at 9 p.m. with those quick questions that aren't at all quick, then this video will change everything. You're about to get your evenings back. You're going to stop being your team's human search engine, and you'll also build a business that actually runs without you being the bottleneck. This is a complete comprehensive guide that will save you years of trial and error and also months of figuring things out the hard way. By the end of this video, you'll have the exact roadmap that has helped one Waybook client from spending 12 hours a week answering their team's questions to just 30 minutes a month. Before we dive in, let's do a 3-step audit of your business knowledge system. Step 1, count how many different places your team looks for information. That might be your SharePoint, your OneDrive, your Google Drive, your Slack, Microsoft Teams, Notion, emails, people's heads, count them all. Step 2, pick your most asked question this week, or the one that makes you feel frustrated. And step 3, answer how much time it would take somebody new to find the answer to that question. If you've counted more than 3 places, or if that question you thought of takes more than 2 minutes to answer, then my friend, you are bleeding some serious money. Now, the average employee, average across the board, spends about 2.5 hours a day looking for information. That's $15,000 per average employee annually in pure waste. And for a 20-person team, that's about $300,000 just walking out the door every year. Now, if you've got your numbers in the head, that's good, because those numbers have just become your motivation to fix this permanently. I'm Mike Bander, and I've been building businesses since I was 15, from mucking out cows on a children's farm to being honoured with a medal from the Queen of England for helping entrepreneurs to scale their business. And here's why I'm absolutely obsessed with this. A few years ago at our startup studio, Turn Partners, we became limited by our own success. Every new hire meant basically more chaos. We spent hours answering the same questions, things about the way we use our logos or how we do our expenses, how to run A/B tests. Now, if any of that sounds familiar for you, then you'll know exactly what I mean. Our Google Drive was a complete disaster. Our team was frustrated, and I was working evenings just to keep up with all of the questions that I had to answer before I could then actually try and do some work that actually drove the business forward. That's when I realized the brutal truth, that growing businesses don't fail because of bad products or lack of customers. They often fail because the senior team becomes the bottleneck and all of the knowledge just stays trapped in their heads. Since then, I've now helped hundreds of businesses break free from this exact trap. What you're about to get is the complete playbook that made it all possible. The same systems that's collectively saved our clients millions in wasted time and errors. Let me guess what your system looks like right now. You've probably got some documents in SharePoint or Drive, maybe a shared folder across the team. Perhaps you've got some screenshots in Teams or Slack, and you've probably got a long list of documents in your welcome email of everything that people need to know, and as well as having a variety of knowledge scattered, well, everywhere. Most importantly, when someone needs to know something, they will come and still ask you. Now, if any of that sounds familiar at all, you're not running your business, you're basically running a help desk. And every time you answer that same question twice, your competitors get a little bit ahead of you. Last month, I had a call with a Waybook client called Patrick, who runs a legal practice with about 30 staff members. He told me, Mike, I feel like I'm on a treadmill. We've documented our processes multiple times. I keep on telling people where they are, but my team still comes to me for everything. And I asked him one question. Patrick, where would someone look for your new client intake process? Well, he paused and said, well, the legal overview is in our case management system, and then the detailed steps are in the folder on our shared drive, and the templates are on a file in our Teams, and the troubleshooting procedures are, honestly, it's more just institutional knowledge. Now, that's not a system. That is chaos with good intentions. And Patrick isn't alone, but there is another path forward, and it's not too far away. When I was 14, working on that children's farm, what amazed me, and even more so looking back now, is that even teenagers could run quite complex operations flawlessly. Feeding animals, managing bookings, handling entertainment. I even used to drive the tractor and trailer rides. But all of this worked because every process was crystal clear, documented, and in one place. Now, if a 14-year-old could run business processes perfectly, then truly anyone can. And if they can't, the problem likely isn't your people, it's your system. This isn't just a nice to have. In manufacturing, one safety shortcut because somebody forgot the process, that's not just a safety risk, it's potentially company ending. In professional services, when your $300 an hour expense gets wasted explaining the filing process for the 5th time this week, you're literally paying to be inefficient. And that is exactly why we built Waybook. because I was tired of seeing brilliant business owners trapped as their company's walking manual. So my friend, here is where it gets interesting. The biggest mistake I see isn't a lack of documentation, it's organizing that knowledge like we're organizing our emails, with folders and subfolders until truly nobody can find anything. Your brain doesn't work like that, and your team's brain doesn't work that way either. So let me show you the structure that works for any business, whether you're a 20-person law firm or a 250-person manufacturing company. Level 1 is your core knowledge area types. We can call these categories. Think about your welcome documents, your sales and marketing areas, your operations, finance, and HR. Now, level 2 within each of these are essentially your key knowledge folders. In Waybook, we call them subjects. And this can either be a departmental grouping, like your sales and your marketing, or it can be a group of knowledge that runs across the business, like your company messaging or your policies. And then finally, we have level 3. This is your individual SOPs, your processes, or your information. In Waybook, we call them documents, and essentially it's a unit of information, an actual step-by-step guide, an individual policy or procedure on how things should work. You want to be thinking like Netflix, not like Windows Explorer. You don't browse by file type. You browse by category, and then genre, and then specific shows. Or of course, you can just search across the whole knowledge base within a tool like Waybook. Now, that legal practice I mentioned, Patrick's team was the same. They had documents scattered everywhere across multiple systems, and staff were just making easy mistakes due to inconsistent processes, not quite knowing where things were, and also onboarding new attorneys and paralegals was actually taking months. So they implemented this exact structure using Waybook's hierarchy system, and they reduced their onboarding time by 50% while saving around $60,000 a year in reduced errors and increased efficiency. But here's what really matters. The next part will save you months of trial and error, because here is how you can set this up step by step. So firstly, I'd recommend step 1 that you just take a moment to list out all of your core business areas. Don't overthink it. If you have departments or your functions, they might be it. And you can also think about how do you get customers, how do you serve them, how do you get paid? They're typically your core function areas. Step 2, under each of these key areas, think about the key departments or clusters of operation. So within this might be your sales handbook, your marketing handbook, your company messaging. And then step 3, under each of those, list those specific insights or procedures. Under sales, you might have your lead generation, your objection handling, your sales follow-up procedure. Now, the magic here isn't having the perfect structure from day one. It's about having one structure that is clear to understand, and the best news is it can really grow and adapt over time. The essential test to sense check this is think like your newest employee, not like you as the business owner. Think about when somebody needs information at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, under pressure, what's their natural thought? Where are they thinking? How are they thinking about that? Containerport Group, a logistics company with over 1,000 employees, use this exact approach, and they actually cut their onboarding time by 30%. And they say they've reduced their employee turnover by 75%. That is massive. Now, if you're ready, pause this video for about 30 seconds and just write down those 3 core business functions. If you can't do it quickly, then that actually may be your first problem to solve. Let's talk about documentation. Now, some businesses think that documentation means writing war and peace about every part of the business. I've genuinely seen 47-page procedures. That is a task that should really take about 10 minutes to learn. Your team doesn't need a novel, they need clarity and speed. I actually have the pleasure of teaching on the Entrepreneurship Masters at UCL here in London. And one crucial thing that I learned early on is giving people too much information and they pretty much use none of it. If you give them the right information in the right format, then they can quickly become experts. So here is our proven 3-part template that works every single time. Firstly, have a quick reference summary at the beginning of the document. This might take 30 seconds to read. The second part is then having that step-by-step guide, ideally with visuals. And the third part might be a video walkthrough that is under 5 minutes in video, and that really can uplift the document. Now, let me give you a real example that will really make this concrete. So I've recently worked with a dental practice using Waybook. They had 6 locations across the US, and they had about 80 staff across those locations. Now, they actually had a different patient intake process for every single location. New patients were often confused because the staff were frustrated, and the error rate was at 23%. So nearly 1 in 4 patients had some sort of issue with paperwork or scheduling on their first experience. So here's what we did when moving their knowledge into Waybook. We started with that quick reference card. So it was the new patient goal was to complete intake, insurance verification, and the first appointment scheduling under 10 minutes. Now we then outlined the steps. Firstly, they need to greet and offer them water. They need to check the insurance card and take a photo of it. Then they needed to fill out the digital forms on the tablet. then verify the insurance whilst they completed some other forms, and the final step was to then schedule the appointment on the system before they leave. Then, once we've created that, you can then add some essentials to create a more detailed guide. This might be screenshots of every screen, any common insurance issues and how to solve it, and what to do if the system was down. Finally, to make this really bulletproof, they can then add in a video walkthrough, showing the screen recording of the whole process and also a patient interaction that made it real life for them. The result was that error rate dropped to under 2% in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, it went down to 2%. Now, the real game changer here was using tools like Waybook shots to capture the SOPs as you actually do the work. So instead of sitting down and trying to recreate the process just for the recording, when you're doing the next patient intake, you just hit record, and whilst you're doing your normal work, it just instantly snapshots what you're doing, highlights what you're doing, and that then becomes the training material. It's the easiest way to document and delegate because your team sees how to do something in real time. The secret here is actually making this skimmable and comprehensive. Again, we want to be thinking like Netflix. Give them the trailer for the quick descriptions and then the full movie for the depth if they need it. But here is how to actually create each part. First, for your quick reference, start with the outcome. Write something like, by the end of this process or procedure, the customer will have. Then just list those 3 to 5 key steps. That's it. Don't overthink that part. Secondly, you can then go back and edit that step-by-step guide. So you can use numbered list and bullet points rather than big text paragraphs. And you can include those screenshots for every key decision point. Feel free to call out common mistakes and exceptions. And here's the mindset shift. If someone can't follow this perfectly, it's not their fault, it's actually yours. Then finally create that walkthrough video. That might be you screen recording something and doing it once perfectly, or actually you just filming you working with the patient. You don't need to edit this to death. Authenticity often beats perfect every single time. And then finally, the good test that separates good from great is if you handed your documentation to a relatively smart 16-year-old, could they execute your process flawlessly? If not, go back and simplify it. Sponsor Cloud, a Denver-based SaaS company, used this exact template approach, and that boosted their deal closure rate by 75%. The same processes, just better documentation. So now it's your turn. Think, what is the one process in your business that people always ask questions about? And pretty much that is your first documentation priority. And as a bonus, if you've got a priority document in mind, then feel free to drop that in the comments of this video and I'll respond with an example template document specific to your process or your procedure. So now we've got some killer documentation, we're not quite out of the woods yet. Some businesses can spend weeks creating perfect SOPs, then just email the team saying, here's our new system, and wonder why nothing changes after the first few weeks. Now, that's basically like throwing a car manual at someone and expecting them to become a mechanic overnight. Now, here's what we learned during the turnaround of our dating business. We acquired and grew a business over 18,000% in 18 months, not because we had the best product, but we succeeded because we understood that people don't resist new systems. They resist being forced into a new system without understanding why. So if you're keen to bring a knowledge revolution to your business, here is our proven 4-step rollout that can get 100% adoption across all of your team. Now, in week 1, think about yourself as a knowledge detective. Before you document, become that detective in the business. Talk to people who actually do the work. They're really the ones that know the shortcuts, the exceptions, the problems, and anything else that you don't see. I use 3 magic questions when I'm doing this internal detective work. Firstly, what are you currently doing that works really well? Secondly, what currently frustrates you about executing on this current work or this process? And finally, if you were training someone new, what are the absolute essential things that they need to know in order to do this well? Now, as a detective, you can write all of this down and crucially try not to judge. Don't edit, just capture it. And then you can ask, if we could solve these frustrations and keep what works, would you be excited about using a better system or a better process? Now, I've asked this question hundreds of times to many different teams, and I have genuinely never had a team say no. In week 2, we want to try and identify our department champions. Now, don't try and convert everybody at the same time into the new way of working. Find about 1 person per department who's naturally excited about these improvements. You can then train them first and let them become the local experts who help their teammates. These champions really will become your evangelists, not your enforcers. And in week 3, we like to run a hands-on workshop. So this is training, but not a boring presentation where you talk at people for 2 hours. It's actually a hands-on workshop where people actually practice the process using these new documentation and system. So here's the format that works. The first 15 minutes of that training session is basically just explaining what we're doing, why we're here, and why it benefits your team members. The next 30 minutes is really about just practicing together, identifying the processes, documenting the knowledge, and just editing that for clarity. And then the final 15 minutes is just space for questions and problem solving and really getting your team excited. Then the fourth week, we encourage you to actively support your team, celebrating their wins, checking in daily for the first week and then weekly after that. But here's the key, we're not just checking to provide compliance, we're checking to provide the support. You can ask questions like, how's the new system working for you? What would make it easier? What unexpected benefits have you noticed? And don't forget to celebrate those wins. When Sarah from accounting says that she's saved 30 minutes filing her expenses, then tell everyone. Encourage everybody to enjoy in that success. I've just implemented this exact process with a legal practice in Birmingham. They'd actually tried to implement documentation 3 times before. Each time it lasted about 6 weeks before people went back to their old habits. This time, 100% adoption in 28 days, and they're still using that process months afterwards. The secret sauce here is to make your team partners in creating the solution, not just the recipients of your brilliant plan. Shine People Solutions, a specialist recruitment firm in Australia, reduced their training time by 25% using this approach. And that really was because they got their team invested in the process from day one. Now, have you ever tried to implement a system that failed? And if you think about what happened within that, I bet it wasn't because your team was lazy. It was probably because they weren't involved in building it and really deeply understanding what the benefits of it were. Now, people have the playbook for the business, but this user manual can be 100 times more effective if it's integrated with how you actually train your people. Now, I learned this lesson the expensive way when we were scaling our previous business, Hopper HQ. We had beautiful processes, documented well, but our new hires still took months to become productive because nobody really connected the dots between the documentation and the training of our new hires. Now, this section will cost you thousands in that training costs. And really, here is how you create a new hiring experience that work with the progressive learning model. Now, we encourage that on that day one of somebody starting, it's really about building the foundation. Who we are, why we exist, how we treat our customers, how we treat each other, and really what success looks like within their role. This isn't yet about processes, it's about the context and the culture. Then after that, within the first week, it's about the essential operations. So the 3 to 5 most critical things that they need to do in their job, safely, effectively, with high quality. Not everything, just those essentials. And then the week 2 and beyond is really about that advanced mastery, understanding the edge cases, the complex scenarios, how to handle the unexpected. If you think about it like learning to drive, you're never starting out on the highway. You always start in an empty car park and slowly building up from there. It's exactly the same. So if you want to implement this in the business, here's the exact framework that we use. Layer 1 is, can they do the job safely? Basic procedures, quality standards, and knowing who to ask for help. Layer 2 is, can they do the job well? So this is things like efficiency tips, shortcuts that work, and how to handle typical situations. And layer 3 is, can they do the job excellently? Advanced techniques, problem solving, and of course how to train others. And the best part, this can all be created easily using learning paths within Waybook. So you can now create a custom learning flow through your knowledge of the particular bits of insight, knowledge, policies, and procedures. We've recently helped a real estate company reduce their new hire training time from 12 weeks to just 3 weeks using this approach. But the crucial part is that we didn't make the training faster, we just made it better. We just reorganized it, increased the clarity, increased the pace. Now, as well as providing great insight in documents, after each layer, have a real conversation. Ask them what feels crystal clear to you, then ask what feels still uncertain. And finally, what would make you feel more confident about that work. Now, these aren't tests, they're confidence-building conversations. The learning path set up in Waybook can make this progression automatic and even add in the conversations that are needed to have. Now, here's something that will shock you. The average cost of an employee turnover is $47,000 per departing employee. So when you factor in all of that lost knowledge, it's really expensive to the business, and this dramatically reduces that risk. Now, this magic really happens when your documentation becomes the foundation layer of the training, and not just a reference tool collecting digital dust. Calm Again Counseling, a San Francisco-based therapy practice, use this approach to gain hours back for client care because their clinical director stopped answering those questions, particularly on that first few months of an onboarding process. Now, if you think in your business, how long does it currently take to bring a new hire to be fully productive? And how much value would you feel in your business if you could cut that in half? Because that's really what we're gaming here. So here is the part that everybody ignores, but it's the part that stops your documentation becoming digital graveyards within 6 months. Your SOPs are living documents. It's not a set and forget it system. Years ago, when I did some consultancy for big companies like Pepsi and PwC, I really noticed something crucial. The businesses with the best processes weren't the ones with the perfect initial documentation, they were the ones with the best maintenance habits. But the good news is, maintenance doesn't have to be overwhelming. This is why we built automatic review reminders into Waybook. What we recommend for SOP and document maintenance basically works like this. You can have your weekly check-ins that take about 5 minutes. Are people using the system? Are people actually having any confusion with that knowledge? And are there any quick wins to celebrate? You can use this in your search reports or tracking where people are within your knowledge. But you can also ask people, so what worked well this week, what caused frustration, what questions came up on a regular basis. Then you can have your monthly content updates, which basically takes about 2 hours. Here you can update the procedures based on that feedback and also look for any new opportunities that emerge or new information that needs to be put in. And then finally, you can have your quarterly system audit. Now, this takes about 4 hours if you're efficient with it, and it's really about, does the structure still make sense for the business? What is a missing need and how has the business changed over that time? We have a client called Emma who manages over 400 SOPs across a logistics company. Now, this exact schedule actually means that she now only spends about 2.5 to 3 hours per week keeping everything current and up to date. 3 hours for 400 documents. Now, her secret is that she catches small changes before they become big problems. And here's how to automate 80% of that. You can really just set up a review reminder based on how often processes change. You can track when documents were last accessed, which is all built into Waybook, and then you can create those feedback loops so team members can easily flag issues in real time. And of course, use your version control so you can go back if you ever missed an important change. Now, the key insight here is that maintenance is always easier than reconstruction. So spending 3 hours a month on updates always will beat spending 3 months every 2 years on totally rebuilding everything from scratch. Now, finally, here's how you can prove that your documentation system is actually transforming your business and also to justify the time investment to any of your skeptical partners or stakeholders. To do this, we encourage you to track these 4 metrics. First, what is your time saved per employee? So how much faster do routine tasks take to get completed without spending those 2.5 hours a week looking for information? Secondly, your error rate reduction. Are people making fewer costly mistakes, and what does that efficiency do and quality do for the business? Third, training time decrease. How quickly do new hires become productive within the business? And finally, you can look at your employee satisfaction. Do people feel more confident, more supported, and less frustrated? I've recently spoken with a marketing agency that did just this, and they tracked $432,000 in savings over 1 year. That is real money, enough to hire 5 to 10 additional team members, give everybody a substantial raise, or just boost your profitability. Their breakdown was that they saved £87,000 in reduced training time, $156,000 in fewer errors and reworking that work, and $189 in the management time that was saved that could then be used for higher value activity. For your measurement approach, baseline where you are now, implement this system, and then you can measure that again at 30, 60, and 90 days. Now, if you want a very simple calculation for now, pull out your phone's calculator and multiply your hourly rate by 10, and that's pretty much what poor documentation is likely costing you per week. Multiply that by 52, and if you're shocked by that annual number, then it's time to do the work. But there is one more thing. Businesses that have documented processes are 50% more likely to scale successfully. According to recent studies, it really shows that efficiency is not just a nice to have, it is the competitive advantage. Now, what would you do if you could save 10 hours a week? What would you do in your business or more family time? Would you acquire new clients? Would you grow the team? If you're inspired by this, then share in the comments. So there you have it, the complete roadmap for creating SOPs and documentations that actually transform your business instead of just sitting in digital folders across the board. Now, remember that 9 p.m. phone buzz that I mentioned at the start? This system eliminates it permanently. Now, I can guess what you're thinking. Mike, this all makes sense, but how do I actually implement this without spending the next 6 months building it myself? Well, here's the exciting part and why we actually built Waybook in the first place. You can actually start a free trial on Waybook right now. And in your free trial, you'll get access to all of the proven templates and frameworks that I've just showed you, which is already worth thousands, but you'll also get our complete quick start implementation guide. Every feature that I mentioned and demonstrated today is also included and so much more. Plus, you'll also get our team members' hands-on support to help you succeed. And of course, Waybook is full of AI to basically do all of this work for you. But here is something special for making it to the end of the video. I'm going to be doing personal strategy calls for the first 50 businesses that mention that they've watched this video. On this call, we will analyze your specific business, identify your business documentation opportunities, and create a custom implementation plan, all completely free. So here is your next step. Click the link in the description below to start your free trial right now. The quick start guide will help you create your first few SOPs in under 10 minutes. Thousands of business owners are exactly where you are. And I also remember the overwhelm, the frustration of being everybody's go-to person, the sinking feeling when knowledge walked out the door when somebody left, but you don't have to stay trapped as your business human search engine. With the right systems, you can build a company that runs beautifully without you being the bottleneck. Your team wants clarity, your customers deserve consistency, and you, my friend, deserve your evenings back. And this is how you stop being that walking Wikipedia for your business. If this video has helped you see a path forward, then please do hit the like button, and also feel free to subscribe for more content on building businesses that work without burning you out. For more on how to create a perfect SOP, check out this video, and until next time, I hope you will enjoy some smooth scaling.